All right, let's dive in. Today, we're going to take a deep dive into CareerPoint Ltd.
Ooh, exciting.
Yeah, we've got their Q2 FY25 press release, the financials, standalone and consolidated, of course,
Of
a nice
course.
investor presentation,
Love those.
and even some background on the company and their future plans.
Ooh, forward-looking. I like it.
So by the end of this deep dive, you'll know not just like what the numbers are, but like what's the story behind those numbers.
The why.
Exactly, a multi-dimensional view of how they're doing.
And you know what's really cool about CareerPoint Ltd? They're not just your average education company.
What do you mean?
So they've actually been around in India for over 30 years. They started with test prep, helping students prepare for exams.
Right.
But now they're doing financial services with their NBFC,
Which is called?
Strojan Capital,
Okay.
and they're even dipping their toes into edtech.
So they're like evolving.
Evolving, exactly. And that really shows in these latest results some really exciting growth.
So the headline is, CareerPoint Ltd. Is on the up and up, with some seriously impressive year-on-year growth.
They're on a roll.
We're talking revenue, EBITDA, profit, the whole shebang,
The trifecta.
all showing significant increases. So let's get into it.
Yeah, let's look at these numbers. Consolidated revenue jumped by almost 10%,
Wow.
hitting 61.8 crores.
Nice.
That's not just good, it's well ahead of the industry average, showing they're grabbing market share
Taking names
and kicking butt.
standalone revenue also saw a bump, reaching 41.4 crores. So that's healthy.
Very healthy.
But it's not just about the top line, right? What about the bottom line?
Of course, you gotta look at profitability, and that's where things get really interesting.
All right, lay it on me.
Their EBITDA margins are really strong, a consolidated 71.6% and standalone 67.8%.
Whoa.
That means they're managing costs well, generating great profits from their operations.
Very efficient.
And we can't forget about EPS, up 18% consolidated and a very nice 20.3% standalone.
I like the sound of that.
Very investor-friendly.
So what's driving all this success? Is it one magic bullet, or is it a bit of everything?
It's a mix of smart moves and some favorable market trends,
Okay, so break it down for me.
The growth in operating income is mainly from two areas.
All right.
Higher revenues in their formal education division, think managing schools and universities.
Right.
And their franchise business is booming.
Interesting. So they're going beyond just test prep.
Exactly. And that expansion is paying off big time.
Makes sense. And their NBFC, Strojan Capital, and their EdTech ventures are adding to the momentum, contributing to that consolidated growth, right?
Absolutely. They're really smart about using their knowledge of education to grow in new areas.
Leverage that expertise.
Right. And here's something interesting.
Good one.
They achieved this growth even though other income actually decreased.
Oh, really?
Yeah, mainly because of lower capital gains from asset sales. The financials show that.
Huh. So their core business is really powering this whole thing.
Exactly. It's the engine.
That's great to see.
Speaking of smart moves, they're also doing a major restructuring.
Oh, yeah. This is a big one for anyone following the company.
Big time. They've approved a plan to separate their education and non-education businesses into different listed entities.
Okay, so separate them out.
Yeah, it's all about having more focused management for each area, making them more efficient.
Like divide and conquer.
Exactly.
So we're going to see a CareerPoint EduTech Ltd. Handling the education stuff.
Yeah.
And then a merger of Strojan Capital Ltd., the NBFC, with the existing CareerPoint Ltd.
It's a big shakeup.
It is.
But it's moving along nicely. They've got the approval from the NCLT.
The National Company Law Tribunal.
That's the one, and they're working through all the requirements to get these new entities listed.
So this restructuring, is it something investors should be watching closely?
Absolutely. It could create some interesting opportunities, change the market dynamics.
Definitely something to keep an eye on.
Now, here's something that investors will love.
Give it to me.
CareerPoint Ltd. has declared a second interim dividend of 10% on their 10 rupee face value shares for FY25.
That's nice.
It shows they're feeling good about their financials and their future.
It's a good sign.
Definitely a sign of confidence.
All right, so now let's dig into their different divisions, see what's happening on the ground.
Love it. Let's get granular.
First up, their test prep division. They've had quite a transformation there.
They've shifted from being mainly a service provider, tutoring and coaching,
Right.
to becoming a product company.
Products.
Yeah, creating scalable, specialized products that can reach a wider audience.
So what kind of products are we talking about?
Think study materials, online courses, practice tests, that kind of thing.
Makes sense.
And the numbers show it's working. They've got 56 partner study centers now.
Wow.
a whole range of specialized products for different exams.
Yeah.
And they've really bumped up their profit and return on assets in this division.
That's impressive. So they're creating those steady revenue streams like subscriptions,
Exactly, that recurring revenue.
which is great in such a, unpredictable market.
Totally. It helps them grow sustainably, weather any storms that come along.
Now let's switch gears, talk about their formal education division.
All right, so here they're acting as a shared services partner for schools, colleges, universities.
Interesting.
They're basically providing that behind-the-scenes support that lets these institutions focus on their core educational activities.
So they're like the unsung heroes.
Exactly. They're helping these institutions thrive.
What kind of services are we talking about?
It's a whole range.
Like what?
Enrollment management, academic advising, learning management systems, even faculty recruitment,
They do it all.
pretty much.
And who are they partnering with?
They've got an impressive list.
Give me some names.
Career Point University, which has campuses in Kota and Hamirpur.
Okay.
Career Point Gurukul, Global Public School, and lots more.
So they're really working with a variety of institutions.
Yep, a diverse range.
And now let's zoom in on Srajan Capital Ltd., their financial services arm.
The NDFC.
Yes, 100% subsidiary, fully registered with the RVI,
All above board.
and I'll become a lifted entity soon as part of that restructuring.
That's the plan.
It's really interesting to see them step into finance with their background in education.
Yeah, it's a unique angle.
So what's their approach here? What makes them stand out?
They're all about being a new age financial services company, focusing on customization and flexibility.
So like a more personalized, agile approach.
Exactly. Catering to customers who might not be served well by traditional banks.
And how are they doing so far? Any impressive wins?
Oh, they've already achieved some remarkable things.
Okay, I'm intrigued.
They've built an AUM, that's assets under management, of over 400 crores.
Wow.
And they haven't used any external leverage to do it.
So they're fiscally responsible.
Very much so. And here's the kicker.
What's that?
They've been profitable since day one.
Kidding.
Not kidding. Very rare for a young company in such a competitive market.
All right, color me impressed.
They're doing things right.
It sounds like they're applying that same smart thinking from education to finance.
They're taking their winning formula and applying it to a new field.
So what's next for Career Point Ltd? What's their grand plan for growth?
Well, they've outlined a multi-pronged approach,
I like the sound of that.
focusing on new product offerings,
Ooh, new and shiny.
improving their operational and financial strategies,
So
driving product innovation,
Got to stay ahead of the curve.
expanding geographically,
Or markets.
and even considering inorganic growth through mergers and acquisitions.
Wow, they're not messing around.
They're ambitious,
Yeah.
and they have a plan to back it up.
It's a recipe for success. All right, let's take a breath and then we'll unpack all those growth plans in detail.
Sounds good. I'm ready when you are.
All right, so new product offerings. Let's start there. What are they cooking up?
So in their test prep division, they're planning to launch products for a bunch of different exams.
Okay, like what?
CUET, study abroad programs, CLET, even government undergraduate and postgraduate programs.
Wow, they're really covering all the bases.
I want to be the go-to for anyone with big exam dreams.
Makes sense. From cracking those tough entrance tests to studying overseas, they're catering to a whole range of aspirations.
It's ambitious, but they seem to have a good track record of achieving their goals.
We'll see. And what about the MBFC side? Any new products there?
They're looking into microloan products, expanding their geographic reach, and even exploring co-lending partnerships.
So diversifying their portfolio, spreading the risk.
Exactly. They're not putting all their eggs in one basket, which is smart in such a fast-paced market.
I like their approach, using what they know, but also venturing into new territory.
It shows they're adaptable, willing to innovate.
Speaking of which, they mentioned improving their operational and financial strategies.
Yeah.
What does that mean exactly?
Well, they're really focused on improving operating leverage.
Okay, break that down for me.
Think of it like getting more output with the same input, basically doing more with less.
Efficiency.
Exactly. And they're also optimizing capital allocation, making sure their money is working as hard as possible.
So smart investments, maximizing returns.
It's like a game of financial chess, thinking several moves ahead.
They definitely have a sharp team behind the scenes crunching those numbers.
They do, and they're also emphasizing product innovation, especially when it comes to technology.
Which is crucial these days, with all the ed tech competition popping up.
You got to stay ahead of the curve, right?
Absolutely. So how are they using technology to their advantage?
Well, they're all about creating more personalized and engaging learning experiences.
So interactive platforms, adaptive learning, maybe even VR.
Exactly. And on the finance side, they're using tech to make their products more accessible and user-friendly.
So think like seamless online applications, instant loan approvals, AI-powered advice.
That's the idea. They're really pushing the boundaries.
It's exciting to see they're not just keeping up with the times, they're shaping the future.
They're definitely trailblazers.
Okay, so we've talked about new products, financial strategies,
Yeah.
and tech innovation. What about geographic expansion? They mentioned adding new business partners.
Right. They're looking to expand their reach.
Any clues as to where they're headed?
The sources don't give specific locations, but it's safe to assume they're targeting high-growth areas.
Makes sense. Places with lots of young people, a growing middle class, where demand for education and financial services is high.
Exactly. They're looking for places where they can make the biggest impact.
Smart. Okay. And finally, what about those mergers and acquisitions? Are they actively hunting for companies to acquire?
They haven't announced any specific targets, but they've said they're open to strategic acquisitions.
So if the right opportunity comes along, they'll pounce.
Exactly. They're looking for deals that can boost their growth, give them access to new technologies or markets.
It's a smart strategy. Combine organic growth with acquisitions, and you've got a powerful engine.
It's a proven formula for success.
So, big picture, what does all this mean for the average investor?
Well, if you're looking for a company with a solid track record, a clear vision, and a commitment to innovation, CareerPoint Ltd. is worth a look.
They check all the boxes.
But of course, no investment is without risk. Got to do your homework.
Due diligence is key.
Look at the data, understand the industry, and decide if it aligns with your goals and risk tolerance.
Don't just take our word for it, do your own research.
Exactly. Informed decisions are the best decisions.
Now, let's talk about those risks. What are some of the challenges CareerPoint Ltd. might face?
Well, one big one is the competition.
It's a crowded market.
Very crowded. The Indian education sector is constantly evolving, new players popping up all the time.
It's a tough landscape.
CareerPoint Ltd. needs to stay innovative, differentiate themselves, or they'll get lost in the noise.
It's like a race. You got to keep pushing forward.
Exactly. And the same goes for financial services. It's a battleground out there.
Banks, fintech startups, everyone's vying for a piece of the pie.
Srajan Capital has to prove itself, carve out its niche.
It's not just about being good. It's about being exceptional.
Absolutely. You got to stand out from the crowd.
And then there's regulatory uncertainty.
Yes, the ever-changing rules of the game.
Both education and finance are heavily regulated, and those regulations can change quickly.
Any sudden policy shifts could disrupt their plans, add extra costs.
Like navigating a maze with moving walls.
Exactly. You got to be agile.
So having a good legal and compliance team is essential.
Absolutely. They'll keep you on the right side of the law.
And then, of course, there's the broader economic climate.
The big picture.
Inflation, interest rates, a potential slowdown, all of that could impact consumer spending.
And that could affect demand for both education and financial services.
If people are tightening their belts, they might cut back on those areas.
Exactly. And in their investor presentation, they do acknowledge the risk of a global economic slowdown.
So they're aware of it, but it's still a factor to consider.
It's a reminder that even the best plans can be affected by things outside your control.
True, but it's not all doom and gloom.
Right. Despite the risks, CareerPoint Ltd. has a long history of success.
Over 3 decades in the Indian education sector, they've seen it all.
They've weathered many storms, they're resilient.
And they're not just reacting to change, they're driving innovation.
That's key. They're proactive.
Their transformation from services to products, expanding into new areas, embracing technology, it all shows they can adapt and stay ahead.
They seem to have a knack for anticipating market trends.
Like a sixth sense for what's coming next.
And they're not afraid to take calculated risks.
Which is essential for long-term success.
And their financial position is strong, too.
So they've got a solid base to work from.
Healthy balance sheet, strong cash flow, prudent net levels.
That'll help them weather any storms that come their way.
They're built to last.
So we've covered their growth, their plans, the good, the bad. But what about the bigger picture?
You mean like zooming out?
Yeah, like their business model.
Yeah.
Especially blurring the lines between education and finance.
Oh, that's interesting. CareerPoint Ltd. is a really good example of a company using what they know to create something new.
Like a hybrid.
Yeah, they took their deep knowledge of education and applied it to finance.
And it's working.
Right, that's a powerful combo.
It's like their expertise in education helps their finance ventures, and the finance success lets them invest more in education.
Exactly, a win-win.
Could this have implications for other companies, you think?
I think so. Imagine a healthcare company doing insurance or a tech company making a finance platform just for their users.
It's like a whole new era of business breaking down those old industry walls.
And that could mean new opportunities for investors too.
How so?
Think about a portfolio that's not just diversified by industry, but by business model.
So you're investing in these companies that are changing the rules.
Exactly. CareerPoint Ltd is a great case study for that.
It's like a whole new way to think about investing.
So, as we wrap up, here's a question for you to ponder. Could this blurring of boundaries be the key to unlocking more growth and innovation?
Interesting.
Will we see more companies following CareerPoint's lead?
It's a good question to think about as the business world keeps evolving.
CareerPoint Ltd has definitely given us a glimpse of what's possible.
Lots to think about. Well, that's all the time we have for today's deep dive.
Time flies when you're having fun.
We hope you enjoyed this exploration of CareerPoint Ltd.
A fascinating company.
Until next time, keep learning, keep exploring, and keep diving deep.